Hey guys, I'm coming to you today, and it is a somber week. The state of Tennessee, which S2L Recovery is located in Middle Tennessee, and the state of Tennessee Department of Health put out the statistics for overdose deaths, the numbers of people who died in 2016, and on the death certificate it says overdose, drug overdose. And that number is 1,631. Guys, that's mind blowing, and it hurts. It hurts a lot of people, and the reason that that should hurt is because that's not just numbers and that's not just stats. Each and every one of those is people, and not only people, but people who were made in the image of God in the Imago Dei. And 1,631, and that's just one state out of 50. The states start putting their numbers out there from last year towards the end of the following year, and so in December of this year probably we'll get the national numbers, and it'll be epidemic proportions, as most of us already know, and I'm afraid that this year we're in now will be worse, and we won't know those numbers until December of next year. And as you watch these videos, the hope is that you're encouraged. And the encouragement right now is two things: that there's peace and hope. The hope is that there is freedom in Christ. There is. And I could say that based on the authority of His Word, and I could say that based on my own story. The peace that I'm talking about, that I need now, because I've lost people that I love to addiction. And I know a lot of you have. The peace, it says in Philippians, it says, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, every circumstance, present your request to God. And the peace from God that surpasses all understanding will guard your heart and your mind in Christ Jesus. And that peace doesn't make sense. It surpasses our understanding, but it's a peace that we need, and our minds and our hearts are guarded. And guys, I'm telling you that there can be a peace. Doesn't mean that you're happy, but you can have a peace, and it doesn't have to torment you if you've lost someone. And the hope is that if you're struggling with this, that you don't have to be one of those numbers next year. There is hope. There is hope that there's freedom in Christ. And I want to read from just some encouragement from the book of Ephesians in this verse and talk about it just for a second. But they have become callous, in Ephesians chapter 4. They have become callous and have given themselves up to sensuality, greedy to practice every kind of impurity. But that is not the way that you learned Christ, assuming that you have heard about Him and were taught in Him as the truth is in Jesus, to put off your old self, which belongs to the former manner of life and is corrupt through deceitful desires. Deceitful desires. And to be renewed in the spirit of your minds, and to put on the new self, created after the likeness of God in true righteousness and holiness. Now, righteousness is a video that we've done. Go back and watch it. True holiness and those kind of things we've talked about. If you want to read about the renewal of your mind, read Romans chapter 12. But this verse, it starts off talking about greedy practices, and that reminds me of my life. I would do things to please me. I would do things to bring me glory or me pleasure. But then it goes on and it describes the reason that we fall into that life. And this is beautiful. This is such a good truth to hold on to and be aware of. It says that you are corrupt, the old manner of life. You are corrupt. You're caused in that manner of life, and you're corrupt because of deceitful desires. Think about those two words and that they're put together. Deceitful, Merriam-Webster describes deceitful as tricking someone, or let me read it, making or trying to make someone believe something that is not true. Trying to make someone believe something that is not true desires. And that rings so true now as I see that, because all of my desires in that way of life to bring me pleasure, I have history and proof to know that that doesn't happen. Maybe brief, but it always ends badly. My marriage, my family, my friends, my legal issues, my homelessness, all of these things ends badly when I attempt to do these things out of greed and have a hardened, callous heart. What's so interesting is there's surveys done that people that battle chemical dependence traditionally have high IQs. And if you think about it, the manipulation, the lies, the living different lives and all these different masks and having to keep up with everything in this lifestyle, you could kind of understand the brain capacity to do that. But why? But if we have such high IQs, are we being deceived in our desires? We're deceiving ourselves in what we want when we have the history of not doing it. And here's the hope. Here's what I want to encourage you with. When those deceitful desires come, whenever you have the urge to do something that is not righteous, and the old former, it reminds you of that, drag it into the light. Solomon, the Bible calls King Solomon the wisest man to ever live, says that he found more to gain in light than in darkness. My first thought of that was like, okay, thanks, Captain Obvious. But as you dive into that, that makes so much sense, because my thought was I would lose stuff if I lived righteously and it wouldn't be as fun. But there's actually more to gain in a life of living in light. I close with this verse, and it's just one chapter over in the book of Ephesians, and it's in chapter 5. But anything exposed by the light becomes visible. For anything that becomes visible is light. Therefore it says, awake, O sleeper, and arise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. My encouragement today, if you are struggling or you know someone that needs this encouragement, take your mask off. Drag the darkness into the light. And if you're going through the darkest season of your life, know that if it's exposed by light, that darkness has to flee. Guys, I love you. Have a good one.